This video is going to go through a full workflow, not strongly edited, of how we get a finished material, starting with everything. As you can see on screen now, starting from the very beginning, putting our material in the box. You want to make sure it's straight and it's lined up with the camera so you get a desirable repeat on the camera. You don't want it to be all slanted or jagged. You want to make it as flat as possible, maybe even iron a material if you have to, if it's got a lot of wrinkles in it. And our scanner's already calibrated, so next you'll just take a preview image. Takes a little bit of time. And now that we see our preview image, we can see the edges of the material, which we don't want. So we're actually going to crop down our selection size after we check and make sure we have all of the maps that we want to be scanned selected. And before we start the scan, we're going to change our preferences, make sure we have everything. In this one, we're going to use a PBR material. So now we crop down the selection size to get rid of all those unwanted edges. You never really want to capture the back of the box unless it's through holes in a material, because that can throw off the color when you try and smooth it. And then we'll capture the material. We should have all our maps now, and it should be about time to start smoothing before tiling. We can see we have quite a few wrinkles here, even though I made the material as flat as possible. And if you look at our alpha map, we have a big bright white spot up there, because this material is semi-transparent, and so obviously I didn't crop my selection enough. So what we're going to do to crop that selection down is we can just lower the bar. As you would crop any material, we can also see that we have some white on the bottom there. And this isn't a very organic material, so we can afford to crop quite a bit off. And then just hit the green check mark. It'll apply all the changes. Since no tiling algorithms are activated, all it's going to apply is the crop of the image there. Wait for that. Now we can go through to all our maps. And our base color map is actually looking pretty good. We're going to activate our tiling just so we can see if there's any color gradients on it. So you can see there's a slight color gradient, but we don't really need to apply smoothing to that. We only want to apply smoothing to places we really have to. We can see this material isn't very reflective, so its metalness map is pure black. The roughness map has a pretty strong color gradient on it though, so we're definitely going to smooth that. If you go into your preferences in the newer versions, you can actually go to the second tab here, and on top there's a default smoothing section that you can check or uncheck. I have it unchecked because we like to save our source files without any smoothing, and then we can always add smoothing later. But if you save a material with smoothing, then you won't be able to take that smoothing off when you reopen it. So now that our material is looking all right, it's cropped down, before we start tiling, we're going to save it, and this will be our source file that we can work from. Just in case the program crashes or anything else bad happens on our computer, we don't have to go and rescan it while trying to go through the tiling process. As you can see, you can just close that out, open it up. Locate it wherever you saved it. You don't have to reopen it after you can save it. You can just work on it from there once it's saved. But for transparency's sake, let's just show that it works. You can save it and it reopens and everything's looking fine and dandy now. So now it's time to make some changes. You can see our normal map has quite a few wrinkles on it, so we didn't really iron this material. We'll open up the tiling tab just because it's easier to visualize things that way. When they're all sitting right next to each other, you can see the color gradients well. Let's start with the normal map. Go ahead and bump the smoothing up quite a bit. The material in the real world is actually pretty flat. The texture isn't very noticeable, so we can actually bump it up really high. And we'll still get a good amount of texture, but it'll just take out those large wrinkles much better if we take it higher. You can smooth the displacement map, but you don't really need to, because once we apply the changes, it'll be recalculated from the normal map, and then we'll smooth it again anyways. It's down in our roughness map where there's a strong color gradient. We're going to smooth that a little bit. Color gradients don't take much smoothing to get rid of. So we just put on like 25, 30 there. And it'll look pretty good with that. Now we can see, even though we've smoothed it a lot, those really big wrinkles are still noticeable in a tile. And this material is pretty simple. So we're actually going to crop the selection size down without cropping the image. We're just going to decrease the selection size and move it to a more ideal location on the fabric. And for this material, I think it's pretty obvious that it's a pattern recognition material. I mean, you have a nice honeycomb pattern, which you can throw on the pattern recognition. Keep it at 2048 so it goes pretty quick, and keep the accuracy at default. Just let it run through. And remember, don't get impatient with this program. It can take a little bit of time. Let it work its magic. As we can see here from the small little selections it made, they all sewed together pretty nicely. You can see if you zoom in really far there, you can see the stitching, but if you're looking at it from any kind of normal distance, it's going to look really good. Make sure you check all your maps. The displacement map's pretty fuzzy there, but like I talked about, we're going to go over that later. Get rid of it at the end. Now I think this material is looking pretty good in the 2D viewport from what I can see, so let's go ahead and open it up in 3D. See if we can find any bad repeats in here. Looks pretty clean. Like I said, this was relatively simple material, but you can just look at it in different lighting. Try and be really picky. Be harder on yourself than your boss is gonna be. Because if you don't think a material looks good, then nobody's gonna think it looks good. If it looks good on a plane, it's probably going to look good on all the other models. Because the plane doesn't have any wrinkles or edges where it changes. It has no breaks, essentially. The plane is the best place to look for imperfections in a tile, because it's just endless. You'll notice them right away. If anything's wrong, the plane will show you the way. Now it's finished, we'll just click the green check mark Everything's looking nice. Let it synthesize everything, apply all of your changes, all of your smoothing, the tiling algorithm. Now I get a little paranoid, so I always like to look at it when it's tiled without the algorithms, just to make sure the stitching actually stuck. But it should look exactly the same as before. So now our displacement map, it still looks pretty fuzzy. So don't do it when you're in tiling mode, remember. Do it when tiling mode is not on. You can just breathe the smoothing all the way up. See, we get our detail back. It doesn't have to be that high, but I think it looked really good when it's really high. See, look at it compared to 0. If you bring it all the way up into the 90s, it looks really a lot better, a lot more crisp. Now we can just save our material. This will be our tiled version. And once that finishes, that's it. You're done. So obviously this was a really simple material, and you'll be working with some harder ones, but if it goes smoothly, which hopefully it does, then this is how you'll do it. Thanks for watching.